is Pop Culture Yearbook. On this show, we pick pieces of pop culture that were important to us in a given year. We then discuss memories and dig into those movies, albums, shows, and more. I'm Brad.
I'm Pete.
And I'm Gif.
All right. I'm in a great mood. I can't wait for tonight.
It's going to be
It's not
sweet.
what you said a minute ago.
Things change, Pete.
As soon as he pushes
Mox.
that record button, everything changes.
This podcast puts you in a good mood.
It sure does.
That's what I live for.
Oh boy.
Pretty sad.
Yes. Hopefully our listeners.
Gif, you're in charge tonight.
Yes, that is true. Pull up a chair, young bucks, and let Uncle Giffy tell you about a great movie that came out in 1984, Ghostbusters, June 8th.
Who are you going to call?
That's right. It had a budget, a huge budget for 1984 of 25 to 30 million, but the box office came in at $295 million.
Whew. Well, with that big of a budget, you'd think the special effects could have been better.
Well, it's 1984. So
wow.
this movie grossed the second most amount of money for the year. Second to what I found was Beverly Hills Cop. So definitely a blockbuster, and it was a huge movie.
There's a connection between those two movies, which I'll get to.
Yes, there is. So usually we go through and talk about, first time we saw it. I think for me, the first time I watched this movie would have been on television, and it would have been edited, I guess. But, probably the ABC or CBS Saturday movie or something like that. So that would have been the first time for me. How about you guys?
Oh my God, this movie, I'm pretty sure that we went to see it in the theater, and when it came out on video, I might have alluded to this in the previous episode or one of the recent episodes where we're talking about 1984 movies, but I remember going to the video store, renting this movie, brought it home for the weekend. I think we had it as a 2-day rental because it was Friday. Back in those days, we got it on Friday. You get it on Friday and you don't have to return it until Monday, I think it was, because the store was closed on the weekend, and so you have it for another day. So it was. I remember watching
the corner store.
Not the corner
that was before the days of the corner store. This might have been the old Terry's Electronics in Tyler. But I remember renting it, watching it, rewinding it, watching it again, rewinding it, and watching it over and over again, to the point where I had just about every line of this movie memorized. It was my favorite movie as a kid, and probably was the movie that actually introduced me to Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd, because even though they had already been in other movies such as Stripes and Caddyshack, I was only 8 years old when Ghostbusters came out, and so I kind of knew who they were, but I hadn't really gotten into those movies yet. This movie put those guys on the map for me, and I just loved it. This movie had everything that a kid could want and a grown-up could want, in my opinion.
This movie has everything.
It's got the comedy is great. It's got the it's a little bit of a love story in there. There is, obviously it's all about the ghosts and kind of cartoonish, so that kids will enjoy it. I loved it, and I can still watch it and rewatch it. I enjoy it that much because great cast, great movie all around.
Somehow this is one of those weird blind spots that I had.
Oh my God.
I must have seen like bits and pieces on TV, I'm sure. I mean, because I knew obviously a lot about the movie and everything. But I'm not
watching Witness.
No, I was probably watching 16 Candles over and over, and that's why I didn't get around to this one. I don't know. Yeah. I think probably it's possible the first time I watched it all the way beginning to end might have been when we watched it with our kids like a few years ago.
Okay.
So I don't know why. How does that happen? Who knows? Right. I'm a huge Bill Murray fan. This is like the prime Bill Murray movie. It's everything you think of when you think of him.
Yep.
But I just wasn't like Pete with it. I was like 16 Candles like Pete was to this.
Mm-hmm.
And and it's good. I don't find it to be a terribly funny movie though either. I mean, it's funny. There's funny parts, there's funny lines, but when I think of like movies that make me laugh, this isn't one that would go up there against some of the other classics that I love.
Sure.
Well, it's a different kind of funny.
Right. That's what I'm
not
trying to say.
That's what I was saying. It's not only a comedy. It's also it's an action movie,
Well, yeah,
and
it
it
is.
has
Special
the
effects.
comedy is intertwined. Comedy by great comedians, the greatest there were, and it's just intertwined into
Were Chevy Chase and
the
Steve
movie
Martin in this
itself.
movie?
Nope, they were not. But Bill Murray at this age, and when I was this age, growing up in the '80s, Bill Murray was my favorite comedian. Just like we
he'd be
think of
equal to
Steve
those
Martin
other
today,
two.
my favorite is Bill Murray.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's go through the star-studded people in this movie. First off, director Ivan Reitman directed such great films as Stripes and Twins. One of his later ones, Draft Day, I think a lot of us like as well. But the Draft Day, yeah, I thought Pete had it on his football movies when we did sports movies way back.
I haven't ever even
I did.
seen it, and I had no idea Ivan Reitman would have directed it. That
Yeah.
seems weird.
I didn't have that. Maybe
I bet
Gomez
did, yep, probably. So the writers for this movie, Dan Aykroyd did the original screenplay for it, and of course Aykroyd, his whole family is big into spirituality and the paranormal. So his original idea for this was to have him and Belushi in the script, and then who was the other person that they were going to have in it, Pete, with your tie-in?
That was Eddie Murphy. That's the tie-in to 48 Hours. He was going to play, he was going to play Winston.
Yep.
But Winston didn't have as big of a role as the other guys. He came in, more than halfway through the movie, maybe, or
they
about
changed
halfway
that.
through.
They changed that after Murphy didn't come on.
Right, and it was because they wanted Bill Murray to have more of a lead role, and it would have taken too much screen time away from Bill Murray.
Yep. This is probably around the time Bill Murray and Eddie Murphy were writing that Batman movie too. The legend is they were going to make.
Right, there's the legend of that, yeah. So we've got Dan Aykroyd, who of course also wrote Blues Brothers, Spies Like Us, Dragnet, Coneheads, and Harold Ramis was brought in to help rein this in because the original screenplay had these Ghostbusters traveling through time and space, and there was going to be Ghostbusters from different planets and dimensions, and Reitman thought that you couldn't put that movie together. It would have cost way too much money. So Ramis came in, was brought in to help pare it down.
On that note, do you have written down the original name of the movie when it was going to be that futuristic stuff that you're talking about?
I didn't write those down. Go ahead, Pete.
It was going to be Ghost Smashers. That was the working title under the futuristic realm that they were.
That's a lot harder to say.
Yeah,
it is. It
doesn't go into song quite as well. But Ramis, of course, is known for also writing Animal House. One of the lead writers on SCTV, did Caddyshack, Stripes, Back to School. So the two of them put together did a great job with the screenplay and bringing it all together. Do you guys have different actors that were brought in for the roles of
I have some side actors that I noticed that were fun.
Okay, well, I wanted to get into some of the people, and I thought some of these actors that were looked at for the roles would have been great. I mean, I love the people that are in it, but for Peter Venkman, Michael Keaton was considered.
Oh yeah,
I think really would have been awesome at it. Chevy Chase, Tom Hanks, Robin Williams, Steve Guttenberg, and Richard Pryor. But I think Keaton would have been a very good Venkman character.
Yeah, I could see that.
For Egon, I think this list is even better. Christopher Walken.
Wow.
That would have been sweet. John Lithgow. Jeff Goldblum, Michael Keaton for this one as well, but the one I think would have been awesome, Christopher Lloyd, Doc Brown as Egon.
Really?
I think would have been pretty good too. Again,
That's
Ramis knocked it out of the park.
Ramis was absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
It's really hard for me to picture anybody else in that role
Mm-hmm.
because he was and is, or was, rest in peace, that science nerd, and he plays that role perfectly.
Yes. And speaking of rest in peace, Harold Ramis, when he passed away, fans went to that fire department that was used as the headquarters for Ghostbusters, and they left tributes of Twinkies, Crunch bars, and also collections of spores, molds, and fungus. Because that was Egon's hobby, was collecting.
Did either of you see the new Ghostbusters movie with Paul Rudd?
I did not.
No,
Is that the Afterlife
we were just
one?
talking about that. We're gonna watch it probably very soon.
Well, I don't know if I should give anything away.
Don't do it.
I mean, it's nothing huge, but I mean, it's just whatever. You might already be able to guess, so
go for it.
Well, why don't you go ahead and say?
Well, Harold Ramis, who's not alive anymore, makes a cameo at the end, and it's kind of neat how they work that in there. And
okay, is he a ghost?
Pretty much, yeah.
Awesome. I like that. We also have, of course, Sigourney Weaver as Dana Barrett in this film.
Also, by the way, I've seen that Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters.
Wow.
No, the new one. You guys.
There you go.
I've seen more than you.
That's ahead of the game on that one. Sigourney Weaver, this was my first in this movie. I remember even as a kid thinking, wow, that's hot.
Parts of you were awakened at the 8-year-old Pete.
You could say that.
Excellent.
I don't know. I might have been a little bit older, but watching that movie over again, yeah, wow.
So in this role, Daryl Hannah, Julia Roberts, and Kelly LeBrock were considered. But didn't Splash...
Julia Roberts, way back then, huh?
Way back then.
Wow.
Didn't Splash come out in 1984?
It did.
Yes, it did.
So that was Hanks and Daryl Hannah.
There you go.
In that, so they were definitely busy in 1984. And then the weird one for me, Rick Moranis playing Lewis. I think he was perfect.
God,
yeah.
This role, just a dorky little guy, but somebody who was considered for it was John Candy, and I love John Candy, but Rick Moranis was too good in this movie. To take him off of it. So
the scene that I loved was when they had him captured after he went crazy and everything, and Harold Ramis was chewing somebody out, and he kept pointing his finger as he's talking sternly, and then just the little background things. Moranis says, he's just like imitating the moves and everything. Yep. It's like you got to pay attention to him in the background. Mm-hmm. He's not the main thing that's going on in those scenes where he's the funniest.
Right. But he's so good in this. Yes. The last couple things I wanted to mention before we get into the film, in 2015, this movie was put into the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. And of course, later on tonight, we'll be talking music of the year. And that is because Ray Parker Jr.'s Ghostbusters went to #1.
And he stole it from Huey Lewis's I Want a New Drug and got sued.
Did he?
Really?
Oh, you guys didn't find that? I didn't look it up. I just know that from...
I did not look that one up, or I didn't find that when I was looking at stuff.
Huey Lewis sued him, and I think he won, and it's a big ripoff.
Yeah.
They wanted Huey... I believe the deal is they wanted Huey Lewis to do the song, and he declined, or he didn't do it because he was going to do Back to the Future or something instead after that.
Okay.
And that led to Ray Parker, and then I think that's the whole connection, kind of.
Yeah, and that song... I'm not a big fan of that song. The one I liked in the movie was "Cleaning Up the Town." That to me was the catchier tune.
I think so too. I had that written down.
However, in the Ghostbusters song, the line "Bustin' makes me feel good," I got a kick out of that. Maybe more of a PG-13 on that instead of a PG.
I wrote down there's a good montage, or it's called "Saving the Day." Brings us to Act 3.
Yep.
Yep.
Kind of made me think of Excitable by Def Leppard in our 80s montage movies.
Oh, yeah.
Do you guys remember, by the way, the Bobby Brown one that was Ghostbusters 2?
Yeah.
The main song?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, that was a great one, too. But we're not talking about Ghostbusters 2.
That song was better than the Ghostbusters 2 movie. I will say that much.
And Bobby Brown stole that one from Hip to Be Square by Huey Lewis.
Boy, Huey Lewis is just getting ripped off left and right.
That's not a fact. That was a joke.
Oh.
Shoot. A couple other people in this movie. We got Annie Potts as Janine. She is great. William Atherton as
Die Hard.
Peck.
God,
yes,
I love.
He has one of the most punchable faces in cinema.
He's certainly stuck with it. And then also, we got from Die Hard. We got the jail guard later in the movie, Reginald Vell Johnson.
Yeah, well, that's right. He's also in it.
Who is Al Powell from Die Hard and also the Family Matters dad. Yep. But he's a cop in everything. He was a cop in Family Matters. He's a cop in this. He's a cop in,
Yep.
I actually found a few connections kind of to Die Hard, or at least one other one too.
Oh, you got another one?
Okay. Well, it's not about a person, so I can save it for later.
All right. Well, why don't we...
but I did have a couple other people I wanted to mention.
Oh, yes, please do.
These are all early in the movie. Well, two of them are, and then there's two other randoms. Right at the very beginning, the library lady, Gifford, you know who that is.
Didn't spring to mind. Sorry.
It's Mrs. Finkel from Ace Ventura.
Oh, Laces Out.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
Oh, my God. I didn't put that together.
And then the student right off the bat that Bill Murray's trying to get with played Cindy in A Very Brady Christmas when Cindy didn't join the cast for the movie they made. And then all of a sudden we had this hot Cindy. And that was her. And then I read and found Debbie Gibson and Ron Jeremy both had uncredited roles in this movie. I have no idea where.
What?
But they were both uncredited. I read it on the internet, so it
must be true.
For sure true.
Yep. But
I don't know who or how or where they were.
I did write down that bit about Cindy Brady just in case you didn't catch that.
I saw her right away and I was like, oh my God, I know who that is.
Well, I'm glad you caught it because, I figured you probably would.
All right, that's the extent of my fun facts.
Excellent. Pete, did you want to throw anything in before we get started, or do you want to throw them in and as we go through?
Well, that you mentioned Ivan Reitman. He actually died earlier this year, February of 22. He actually also was the voice of Zool and Slimer.
Oh, I didn't see he was Slimer. I didn't see the Zool thing.
Yes. A couple of other fun facts. As a promotional stunt, the phone number that was in the commercial, they actually set that up as a real number so that you could call it, and then you would get a recording of Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd saying they couldn't come to the phone right now because they were out catching ghosts. So I thought that was an interesting little thing. And also, Slimer was actually based off of John Belushi, and Dan Aykroyd confirmed that they wanted to have a John Belushi type character in it. And so that's what that was the inspiration for Slimer. I do also want to throw out there, did you ever have the board game Ghostbusters? I remember I did have that for a while. It was kind of like Mousetrap as I remember it. It had little props that you had to put together. And the little traps and everything. I thought it was just one of those games. It was just like Mousetrap. It's more fun to just put together the thing than it is to play the game. I don't remember actually playing the game.
Sure. So, well, and you talk about the game. I mean, think about the merchandising that came off of this. I mean, there was Halloween costumes and lunchboxes and games and cartoons and subsequent, sequels and reboots, and the latest one, Afterlife, came out in last year, correct?
Yep. And so there was also the one with the women with Kirsten Wiig and who else was in that? I'm drawing a blank here.
Melissa McCarthy.
Leslie Jones was in it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this thing definitely has legs and has stayed in the consciousness at least. So we will jump into the movie here. Starts out in library in New York. We got Ray Finkel's mom as the librarian. And she heads down into the stacks where I thought it was weird. She was that terrified by cards coming out of the card catalog that much. She didn't actually see a ghost or anything, but she finally rounds the corner, and we see her fear on her face as we get the opening credits to Ghostbusters as she was attacked by a ghost.
Mm-hmm.
So the first character we meet is Venkman. He is doing an experiment with two students. The aforementioned Cindy Brady, the good-looking young co-ed, and then another dorky male character.
I feel like I've seen him in something else too.
And I didn't look him up to see what else he was in, but he's your prototypical college dork,
right?
Big head of hair, and but I just love how. So it's an experiment where he's trying to test ESP, and of course the guy is getting some of the answers correct, but yet Venkman still shocks him. And I like the one time he gets shocked and his cum goes flying out of his mouth.
He doesn't show a couple of wavy lines.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, nope, sorry.
This just isn't your day. And then, of course, he's flirting. Venkman's flirting with the co-ed, and she gets them all wrong, but he won't shock her.
Can you see these? Are you sure you can't see these?
And I like when the guy finally quits. And he goes, "You can keep your $5."
He storms out of there. Oh God, that was good.
So Ray comes flying into Peter's office there, and he's all excited because there's been a sighting at the library, and Egon's already there. So they head over to the library, and I just love Ray and Egon's enthusiasm for this. I mean, they're all in. They totally believe in this, and Peter is just complete skeptic. He just doesn't want anything to do with this. They see the books all stacked up, symmetrical book stacking, and Ray and Egon are all excited, and Peter's like, yes, no human could ever do this. So they come upon their first ghost, and they are dumbfounded. These people who are so excited, they got all this equipment, they believe in all of this, and now they're stumped. They have no idea what to do. So Ray comes up with the get her strategy, which doesn't go so well for them. So they come running out, scared out of their wits, and head back to the university.
Is this before or after the dean kicks them out of the school?
So once they get back to the university, they come back into their offices, and the dean is booting them from campus. Okay. Their grant is no longer available, and they get.
That reminded me of Animal House.
Oh yes.
Fat, drunk, and stupid. You got the mean dean, even in Ghostbusters.
Yep. Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son. So now they're out on their butts, and they figure, well, it's the 80s. Everybody goes into business for themselves, so they're going to start their own ghost-busting business. They go to the bank. Ray mortgages his house for a third time, and he is down in the dumps about that. He's very nervous about the payments he's going to be making, but I thought it was interesting. As soon as they get to the fireplace or the fire station that they're looking at buying, Ray's attitude is completely changed. He sees that fire pole, and he's so excited. He wants to buy it. He wants to stay there that night. Like he's like a kid in a candy store. He's just so excited to.
Egon is listing all the things wrong with it.
Right. Yeah.
No way it's going to work for us. Yep.
Exactly.
Doesn't have the electrical stuff that we need.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it should be condemned, I think he mentioned. But Ray, as the money guy, he's happy. He's ready to go. So they bought the firehouse for their office. This is where we meet Dana and Lewis for the first time, Sigourney Weaver and Rick Moranis' characters. We see her going back to her apartment, and every time she walks past Lewis's door, he's almost like he's waiting, looking outside the peephole, and comes out to talk to her. I think he's just hilarious in his little workout suit, super short pants. He's an accountant, so he's all about numbers. He's telling her how he'll record a 20-minute workout, play it back at double speed so he could do it in 10 minutes. And the other thing I find funny is 3 times in this movie, he leaves his apartment and immediately gets locked out.
Mm-hmm.
And later in the show, we find out that he is the keymaster.
Right.
So, but without being possessed, he is not a keymaster by any stretch of the imagination. So Dana heads into her apartment, and we see the aforementioned TV commercial that that has the TV, the phone number on it where you can call in. I thought it was interesting how quickly they put together a television commercial.
That's true.
Yeah.
Everything, for how bad that building was, they sure got a lot of stuff going pretty quick.
Yes, they did, certainly. And this is where we see the first time of possession inside of Dana's apartment, where she had just gone grocery shopping and put the eggs on the counter, and they start to jump out of the carton and fry right there on the counter.
Right on the counter, yes.
And her fridge starts glowing, so she opens it up, and this is where we have the first introduction of Zool is in her refrigerator. So she freaks out and runs up.
Brad, you mentioned the special effects. This is where it starts to get a little bit iffy on the special effects, because it was
I was just joking. It's 1984.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah,
but
looking
there were
at
a lot of movies that had
everything looks all that cool.
Right. But for that time, it was pretty big deal. The next note I have down here, Ray is coming back to the fire station in the Ectomobile. He had just bought an old ambulance, and he's talking about how much work needs to be done on it. And this is where I thought, you know who he needs to call? He needs to call Ray Zielinski, his own character from Tommy Boy, to get all of his parts, because he makes parts for the American working man.
Oh yeah.
So he should have got a hold of himself from Tommy Boy to fix up the Ectomobile. Right.
Now hold on. It was an old ambulance that you're saying, or was it? I thought it was an old hearse.
Yeah, I thought it was too.
It could have been either one. I think the
that they
body
converted
model on hearses and ambulance back in the day were the same, because it did have the side curtains on it, which is more like a hearse. But it did already have the siren on it, which would have been more like an ambulance.
I thought that they had put the siren on. I don't know. But
no, when he came back, there was already a siren on it. There was the light up on top.
There was they addressed it in the one with the women. It was definitely a hearse.
Okay.
Because I think it came out at the end of that movie that it was owned by the guy that was Winston. And because all of them made cameos in a movie, and I thought that was the deal. It was a hearse that was owned, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
And it totally could be.
Because first it was black before they had painted it.
Yes. Yep. So that would be more of a hearse color too. I was thinking hearse, except for the red light up on top. I'm like, why would you have a red light on top of a hearse? But yes, the black.
I figured they put that up there.
Yeah.
No, because he was driving up. I swear it was already up there when he drove up when he brought it. Anyway,
seems like a minor.
If any of our listeners want to chime us on Twitter and tell us if it was an ambulance or a hearse, please do so.
Yes.
Or our website now that we have, or any other place.
Please go to the website.
Yes.
You can find us everywhere. I believe,
counting on John,
unless it was a pro thing, you might even be able to leave us a voicemail on our website. I'm not sure if that feature is there anymore or not.
And if none of that
John Malkern is going to come through for us, and he's going to do the research, find out, and he'll put a hashtag if it was a hearse or an ambulance.
Right.
That's it right there. Hashtag hearse or ambulance.
If none of that works for you, Brad's address is 4872. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to give out Brad's address on that.
It wasn't even close to the right numbers. So.
Correct. I know it was not.
That's
so we also meet Annie Potts for the first time. They've got a secretary now at the fire station, and she is sweet on Egon. We find out pretty early on. And that comes up a couple times during the show. But this is where Dana comes into the office to meet the Ghostbusters and tell them about her experience at her apartment.
Mm-hmm.
So they do a consult with her. They tell her, I think Ray's going to look into the architecture of the building. Egon's going to look up Zool. And Peter's going to go back to her place and check her out. I mean, check her apartment out.
Right. Now, of course, Peter, the one that was skeptical at first, now that there's an attractive woman involved, he's all in.
I like when she comes in and is talking to Janine, how he pops up from his desk and comes running and jumps over the railing to get to her as quickly as he possibly can. So he heads over to Dana's place to investigate, if you will, what happened there. And he comes in and he's got some little contraption and he's acting like he knows what's going on, but he has no clue what he's doing. He he plays the piano keys. It's like, oh, they hate this, when they do that. It just tortured them. He's looking around the apartment, heads towards her bedroom, and she goes, "That's the bedroom," but nothing ever happened in there. And of course, his quick little line is, "What a crime." One of the things I did read about for this was that Murray ad-libbed most of his lines for this movie. Mm-hmm. And he is most of the comedic relief in it. And I thought it was weird. If he's ad-libbing, how aren't people cracking up when he's doing his lines? Because if they're off the cuff, he definitely nailed quite a bit of them.
Well, in that case, I wonder if they maybe do more than one take.
Yeah,
once you get the right line, then you redo it again.
Yeah, redo it.
Unlike our show, they do editing.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Pete's done a little bit of editing. We've had a few things here and there.
A little bit, yeah.
Did you mention how she said Peter was more like a game show host and a scientist?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, that was outstanding. So the whole time he's there, he's basically just hitting on her the whole time. I think he uses a Ted Mosby line where he actually tells her that he loves her right off the bat. And she is not picking up what he's putting down. She, wants him out of the apartment as soon as possible.
Well, she wants her.
Well, he doesn't come across as very genuine.
No,
right.
Not one bit. So now this is in the evening. Janine gets the first legitimate call, and we have the iconic. I'm sure it's been turned into memes and whatnot, but where she pops up from her desk and yells, "We got one," and hits the alarm, and they come rolling out of bed, and the Cleaning Up the Town song comes on, which I just love, and they're spring out of bed, all of them down the fireman's pole to get their gear on and head off to the hotel for their very first case of ghost busting.
Mm-hmm. And now they're at the fancy hotel.
Yes, the Sedgwick. Is that what it was?
I think that's right. Yes.
And they nearly kill the maid.
That was the line I liked.
Right.
It would. So they switch. I liked when they're in the elevator and they switch on their packs and just that noise it makes, and Egon and Peter kind of shuffle over to the other side of the elevator to try to get away from Ray because they're completely unsure of what kind of equipment what kind of power they have.
Before they get on the elevator, though, I love the line where it's like they're all coming in, and then there's this other older guy waiting for the elevator along with them, and he's wondering what's going on or what they are, and then they're like, "Oh, we're exterminators."
Somebody saw a cockroach on 12.
Somebody must be some cockroach. Bite your head off, man.
Right. So yes, they come up to the floor that they need to be on. And the first thing they encounter is this innocent cleaning woman pushing her cart, and they turn and shoot at her.
Just turn and shoot.
Yes, they don't care.
Not even looking.
And just blow this cart to hell. And this poor cleaning woman looks at him and goes, "What the hell are you doing?"
Yeah, that was the line I liked.
Just incredulous. They're sorry. Oh, so good. So they're checking out the hotel. They split up. Ray comes around the corner, and this is where we get our first glimpse of Slimer. Mm-hmm. And besides seeing Slimer for the first time, the great takeaway here is Ray's cigarette. As in his astonishment, his cigarette is just hanging from his lip.
That was perfect.
So that's awesome. He takes a shot at Slimer, who takes off quickly, slams through the wall. We see Egon using his equipment going through the hallway, and he comes across a guest just going into his room, and he pokes the guest to make sure he's not a ghost, which I found funny. And then Peter comes across Slimer, and this is the iconic scene where Slimer charges him, and Peter gets slimed.
He's looking at me.
Right. And Ray over the radio is like, "It's okay, he won't attack you." And of course, Slimer just bull rushes him. So that's great. Ray comes around the corner. Peter's laying on his back, just completely gooed. And Ray and Egon are so excited, because, it's the first contact. And Peter is less so because he's got ectoplasm all over the place.
Just laying on the ground. He can't move.
He can't move, yeah. Yeah, he kind of looks like Randy from A Christmas Story when he falls down.
Yeah.
Yep.
Come on, Ralphie.
So they finally track him down, Slimer down to the ballroom, and this is where they, get their first shot at capturing a ghost. This is where we learn about you don't want to cross the streams, which of course every guy has said, whoever been to the Metrodome into the bathrooms there to the trough urinals, you don't want to cross the streams in there.
Not me, because I couldn't get a stream going in there.
I thought about that, but I wasn't going to say it because
I knew you were thinking it, Pete.
Yeah, I was absolutely
trying to help you out.
Thanks, Brad.
So one of the things I like in this scene is you see Slimer. He's always eating, he's always drinking, but everything just goes right through him. So he, it's an insatiable appetite for sure. So they have their tussle with Slimer. They got their proton packs out and they're shooting the streams at him, and they finally get him in the trap after quite a bit of work. And I like Ray's line of that wasn't such a chore, now was it? And they both look at him like, you gotta be nuts. So they come out of the banquet hall and they tell him the guy how much the bill's gonna be. And I think, what was it, like $5,000?
$5,000.
Yep.
I had no idea it would be so much. I won't pay it.
Right. So Ray promptly turns around and he's like, "Well, we can put him right back. No problem at all."
That's not a problem at all.
So at this point, after this scene, business is booming. News stories like crazy. Magazine covers on Time. Larry King's talking about it. Casey Kasem, we hear talking about it.
They're famous, just like that.
Yep. So everything is just going great. We see the boys at night in their beds, and Ray has a dream of a paranormal rendezvous, I would say, which I thought was a little strange to put in there, where his pants are unbuckled by a ghost hovering above him. So I thought that was a little strange. But since business is so crazy, they need to bring in another guy, and this is where we meet Winston for the first time. And he's being interviewed by Janine, and she's asking him all the questions of, do you believe in ghosts, and
the whole long list.
Yeah,
the way she reads it off is perfect.
Right, and his response is, as long as it's a steady paycheck, I don't care.
I'll believe in anything you say.
Right. Yep. So, of course, things can't go too well for these guys. We get our first introduction of Walter Peck from the EPA. He comes charging in. He wants to know what's going
William
on.
Atherton.
Yes. Yep. Who, again, plays the role perfectly again in Die Hard as the, perfect, punchable, sleazy journalist.
So this is what, it happens a little later where he really screws it up, but it reminded me of Die Hard, where the FBI comes in to, totally just screw everything up. When he comes in at the EPA later on, he's it's a diehard connection already, but he comes in and just screws everything up because he has no concept of what's going on and thinks he's right.
Yep.
Very similar.
Yeah, so he gets kicked out. I think Peter tells him to come back with a warrant and, otherwise, go pound sand type thing. The next point I have here is we're at Lewis's party.
Yeah. And the gargoyle busts out.
Yep. So we've got much more activity at the apartment building, but Dana's coming back. She's trying to sneak past his apartment, and Lewis, of course, catches her and comes out and is trying to convince her to come to the party and tells her that we're going to play some Twister and do some breakdancing. So I thought that was great. We see Lewis walking around his party. It's all of his clients. He's as an accountant, and everything's numbers. Again, he buys like generic aspirin that he can get for this, $600 for the same price as $300. He's talking about how he can write all of this off as a business expense, and the smoked salmon, he gives the price. Everything's all about the numbers. And here's where we see I don't know, do you call them hellhounds? Where one's in his bedroom, the claymation. The dogs.
Yes, I didn't know they had such a name as hellhounds.
The gargoyles, I call them.
The gargoyles, sure.
Or the gargoyles.
The big dog things.
This, to me, is the worst of the special effects. Anytime one of those dogs is running is pretty rough. But again, 1984, got to give him a little bit of credit for even putting it together. So Lewis gets chased down by the first gargoyle or dog or whatever, and he gets taken. And we have Dana in her apartment. She also gets dragged into the kitchen as the arms come through her couch, and she's dragged into the kitchen. And she gets possessed by the other dog. So she's Zool, the gatekeeper, and Lewis is now the keymaster. Vincent something or another. I can't remember the rest of his name.
Doesn't matter. Keymaster.
Right. So Peter is heading over to Dana's for his date.
This is my favorite line in the movie coming up here.
And she opens the door, and of course she asks if he's the keymaster, and then closes the door on him again. So he knocks again.
Yes.
She opens it up. Are you the keymaster? And he's like, yep. So he comes in, quickly realizes that something's not right, and she's ready to go, because if he's the keymaster, that means they need to consummate this relationship. So he's refusing to sleep with Zool.
This is a great line.
Yes, and he keeps asking, I would like to talk to Dana. Can I talk to Dana? And of course, Dana looks at him, and this deep voice says, there is no Dana, only Zool. And Peter replies with,
no, this isn't what I'm talking about.
Oh, I like the line where, because she uses this super deep, like demonic voice, and Peter goes, what a lovely singing voice you must have.
No, she says to him, I want you inside me.
Oh.
And he says, sounds like you got at least two people in there already.
That's right. I didn't write that one down. That's a good one.
You have to give Venkman credit for,
Yeah, he did have some restraint there.
Yes.
He could have right there.
Would have been wild.
Yep. Well, and much like Jake Ryan, he had much restraint.
Yeah.
And didn't take advantage of
he could have taken advantage of her, and he didn't do it.
Right. So by this point, Lewis, the gatekeeper, has been picked up by the police, and they drop him off at Ghostbuster headquarters. And this was the scene that Pete was talking about a little earlier. I love that Egon's doing a brain scan, but he's got a colander on his head with all the wires on it. Right. And he's telling, he's fully, telling Egon everything. Like he's, the gatekeeper, and Gozer's going to come, and talking about all the things that happened in the past when Gozer prevailed. And so Ray calls in and says he's hanging out with Zool, the gatekeeper, and thinking they need to get them together, which Egon says, no, not a good idea.
Don't think that's a good idea, right?
Right. So at this point, Walter Peck shows up with a court order and a police officer and electrician to shut everything down, and this is where things get a little, out of control. And again, this whole deal with Peck, it just, I mean, even if it is like illegal and dangerous, you just go ahead and cut the power. Like it just seems a little strange. So
and they had to, by the way, they had to bring in a guy just for the purposes of shutting off that switch.
Yeah,
that's what made me laugh. It's the one guy. There's no other power or anything. He's just going to shut it off.
Right.
That's all he's there for.
So the power gets shut off. There's a huge explosion. Everybody goes running, and of course, when the power to the containment unit goes off, all the ghosts, take off, and they're flying through the city. Yeah. So the Ghostbusters, of course, are brought into jail, and this is where Ray gives his report on the building architecture and how was built by this Gozer disciple, and they did sacrifices on the roof, and basically the whole building is kind of like a paranormal antenna where all this stuff is going to take place. And as the city's falling into chaos with all these ghosts running around, the mayor has asked to see the Ghostbusters, and that's where we see our jail guard who plays Al Powell from Die Hard. He comes down to get them, and they're going off to see the mayor. So in the meantime, Lewis has escaped, and he heads back to the apartment building where he meets up with Dana. And I thought it was kind of funny when they finally kiss, how Dana dips him instead of the other way around. And they get on to consummating whatever relationship they need to do. And I got to tell you, they don't show it, but damn well that Dana was manhandling Lewis in that situation.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. He was not in control of what was happening there. So the Ghostbusters, they meet up with the mayor. Peck is in there as well, making his case for why these guys should be in prison. And Ray refers to him as Dickless and tells the mayor all of these things that are going to happen. And the mayor asks Peter, "Is this true?" And Peter says, "Yes, it's true. This man has no dick."
That's my favorite line of the movie right there.
So Peck, of course, goes after Venkman, and there's a little scuffle. And after they're broken up, you hear Peter go, "Well, that's what I heard." So the mayor sides with the Ghostbusters. They're sent to the apartment building to take care of the issue. And of course, they get a police escort, and there's a ton of people around the hotel when they get there, and they pull up, and right away, Venkman comes out, and all he's concerned with is working the crowd. He gets out of the ectomobile, "Hello, New York." He goes up, starts shaking hands, and, doing some crowd work while, you should be more concerned about what's happening on top of the building. So they head up to Dana's apartment, get up on the roof, and they are, first time we see Gozer. Gozer appears now, and they got to fight off Gozer, and they shoot at her, and she disappears. And this is where we have the moment where they need to choose how they will be destroyed. And they need to clear their minds. They don't want to think of anything. And then we hear Gozer say the choice is made, and they can't figure out who made a choice. And Ray says that the only thing that popped into his head was something that couldn't possibly hurt you, was the sweetest thing in the world. And now we see a 80-foot Stay Puft Marshmallow Man walking towards the apartment building to bring them to their doom.
And this whole scene is where I thought the effects got really bad, but I did love the Marshmallow Man. Looks awesome.
Mm-hmm.
He does.
That totally cool, totally natural within, and so they did that right.
Yeah. And, by the way, if you happen to catch it earlier in the movie, in Dana's kitchen, she throws the groceries on the counter, and it's Stay Puft Marshmallows. So
Yes.
that's like a little premonition of what's going to happen.
Do you think there was any lawsuit over the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man looking exactly like the Pillsbury Doughboy? I always thought
I don't know. Did you look it up?
Were very similar. No, I did not. I was just asking you two, since you tend to have quite a bit of information as well.
I don't know.
I just have the music suing.
Just the Huey Lewis stuff. He didn't look anything like Huey Lewis, so that was good.
Good point. So it's Egon comes up with the plan that now they need to cross the streams in order to shut the portal, and that'll fix everything. So they do that just as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is climbing the building, King Kong style. And I thought it was interesting. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man had kind of an O face cooking. Did you guys notice that in the background? So, of course, the Egon's plan works. The door shuts, and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man basically just, falls apart. And
this is another Die Hard connection here with this giant roof explosion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's like at the end of Die Hard.
Yep.
And how do they survive this roof
There's
explosion?
no way. Yeah, I thought that too.
I mean, did you see that explosion?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, well, not only that, but when Gozer starts like attacking them and pushes them right to the edge of the building, but not over the edge of the building, like she could have just killed him right there, So anyway, we find Dana and Lewis. They need to break them out of the shell of the hellhounds or whatever, and everybody's safe and everybody's fine. And
who are you gonna call?
That's right. So that's pretty much how we end the end credits. We see the Ghostbusters coming out onto the street. Everybody's cheering, and except
feel good ending.
Well, and Dana and Peter are together now, and she's just changed her mind, just like that, apparently.
Well, he saved her life, or helped save her life. I mean, that's a big deal.
It's because he didn't take advantage of her.
That's right.
She was not interested before.
Well, what I liked was when Lewis comes out. And he's like, anybody want to interview me? And like nobody gives two craps about Lewis. I think the paramedics like whisk him away to check him out. But
okay. So, we have to. What was it? We have to take a sample of your brain tissue. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Egon, I'd like to take a sample of your brain tissue. So that was pretty much the movie. I love it still. I think it holds up. Obviously the effects are a little rough, but
you got to forget about that.
Yep.
Though. I mean,
but no, the effects I can look past. It's how they survive that explosion that actually is the bigger like problem.
Sure.
If you're gonna pick out a problem, that's like couldn't they have done something where it was a little more believable, maybe?
Not the fact that ghosts are running rampant in the city.
No, because it's about ghosts and people believe in ghosts.
Okay.
What if they all did die and what we saw at the ending was their ghosts?
Oh my God.
Wow.
Mind blown.
Yes, you're going to have to take a sample of my brain tissue after that one.
Okay.
Is there any brain left to take a sample from?
Hey now. So what were your guys' final?
Great choice.
Pete, did you have any final thoughts on Ghostbusters?
He said, "Great movie, great choice."
Okay,
that's a lot of fun. It's just I can watch it. I can still watch it and rewatch it. Our family enjoys watching it together. It's one of those things that now we're going to watch all the Ghostbusters movies. We talked about it at the dinner table tonight. Probably going to rewatch the other one that I talked about with the women, and then also the Afterlife one that we hadn't seen. So we look forward to that in the next probably week or so.
Okay. It's a good movie. I like it. I don't have the history you guys do, but it's fun to watch, and it's prime Bill Murray, and I love Bill Murray.
It probably
it's almost like
my view
at the time it wouldn't have been because he wasn't that far along yet. But it's almost like you watch it now, and it's like Bill Murray playing Bill Murray. It's it's just so much how you think of him in that role.
It probably shaped my view of how I envisioned New York City too. When I was that age, because it had so much of the city. It was all about New York. I don't know.
Well, and filming in New York is always such a hassle from what I understand, but Reitman said that he wanted it in New York. He wanted this to be his New York movie.
Yeah.
I didn't know if he'd have another chance. So,
well, and we talked about the potential for the futuristic Ghost Smashers. I think the way it ended up having that New York City authenticity, I thought I can't imagine it would have been as good.
No.
Yes, much better.
Yep, for sure. So to wrap up this episode, we are going to do our top 5 music of 1984. Who would like to start us off there?
I can go.
Oh, all right.
All right.
Go for it.
So yeah, what I found looking back at this year is I actually owned a lot of like tapes and or vinyl or different forms.
Yep.
But then there's this whole long list of like honorable mentions too of things that either my brother might have owned or just had a whole bunch of songs on them that like from MTV. So I'll go through the honorable mentions first. Talking Heads, Stop Making Sense, classic Talking Heads album. Speaking of my brother, Quiet Riot, Condition Critical with the song Come On, Feel the Noise.
Oh, Girls Rock Your Boys.
Girls Rock Your Boys. Born in the USA, Bruce Springsteen. That was one he had. Twisted Sister, Stay Hungry. The Cars, Heartbeat City had like all their big 80s hits. That was everywhere at MTV for those videos. Of course, Van Halen, 1984. He had that. Bryan Adams, Reckless. Holy crap, did he have some great songs. Alabama GIF. Got my country one. Roll On.
Yep.
Prince, Purple Rain. These other ones coming up here now are ones I got into when I got older. The Replacements, Let It Be. U2, The Unforgettable Fire. REM, Reckoning. And Don Henley, Building the Perfect Beast, which had The Boys of Summer. And I believe All She Wants to Do Is Dance on there.
Does The Perfect Beast have 2 backs?
And I believe Dirty Laundry, too.
Ah, okay.
My top 5, though. These are ones I actually owned. 4 of these, I think, on tape and 1 on a record. So not really in order. It doesn't matter.
Those were all your honorable mentions? Holy
yeah.
crap. You haven't even hit your top 5.
No.
Wow.
Here we go. Chicago, 17.
Oh.
Chicago, a lot of people hated Chicago if they were old fans, but for me, this is Chicago. That's what we had. Number 4, Madonna, Like a Virgin, had that tape, listened over and over.
Yep.
Number 3, Wham, Make It Big, had that tape. Number 2, Weird Al in 3D. Listen to that tape every day.
What was on that one?
Eat It.
Okay.
And Like a Surgeon, I believe were both on there. And then number 1, I don't even know if I really ordered these, but my last one is Footloose, which I owned on a actual record that I could play on a record player we had. And that was, the big soundtrack, even more than Ghostbusters.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, much better soundtrack.
When we were picking our stuff for this year, I could have gone so many directions, and there's so many great albums and things I could have picked for music, but 16 Candles couldn't be beat. So
right.
Pete,
what do you got?
Did I miss it? Did you not have Reckoning, REM?
I said REM Reckoning.
Oh, sorry. I did not hear it. Okay. I was like, I must have missed something. My honorable mentions were that one, Like a Virgin by Madonna, Bob Marley, Legend, and U2 Unforgettable Fire. My number 5, because of Haken, I was forced to listen to this one all the time. Anytime you'd ride with him driving.
Driving
as an 8-year-old?
Well, no, in high school, he was always playing Ride the Lightning by Metallica.
Metallica.
Sure. Born in the USA, Springsteen. I also had the Footloose soundtrack at number 3. Number 2, Van Halen, 1984. And then I had number 1, Purple Rain, Prince.
Excellent. Well, my list is going to be very similar to all yours, just mixed up a little bit. I'm not going to do any honorable mentions since they've already been listed, but my number 5 was Roll On, Alabama. Such songs as Roll On, and If You're Gonna Play in Texas,
you gotta have a fiddle in the band.
Gotta have a fiddle in the band.
Lead guitar is hot, but not for a Louisiana man.
That's right. That's
so
a banger,
rosin up
man.
that bow the way we love, and let's all. I could go on.
I know you could. I'm with you. My number 4 is the first of 2 soundtracks. That would be Purple Rain. My number 3 is 1984 Van Halen with Jump and Panama and Hot for Teacher. My number 2 is Footloose. And number 1, I listened to this tape nonstop, and that was Born in the USA. Glory Days is still one of my favorite songs to listen to. So that would be my number 1.
Could actually have the Ghostbusters soundtrack as honorable mention because that was a really good. I thought it had a lot of good songs on it.
We own that one, and I listened to it quite a bit, but compared to these, it just doesn't measure up.
Yes, Brad.
Did you have the Weird Al tape or anything?
I
feel like you would have had that too.
My brother did, and so I did listen to it. I could have just easily had that one because I do remember listening to it quite a little bit.
Quite a little bit.
Yes.
Well, I think that's going to wrap up our Ghostbusters episode. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Please be sure to check out our link tree, check out our website and our Buy Us a Beer page, and feel free to contribute and reach out and comment.
Where can they get to that link tree link you're talking about?
Well, I usually go to Twitter and click on our Twitter page and go off of that.
You can get it there. You can get it on Instagram. You can get it on Facebook. You can get it on TikTok. It's everywhere, and it'll take you to any place you want to go. We've got miles of links on there.
Yeah.
This podcast is huge.
It is. It really is. It's amazing how big we are.
Yeah. That's what my wife keeps telling me. No, you're plenty big, sweetie.
Well, that's what I heard.
There you go.
All right. I think we need a little Preacher Row.
A little Preacher Row?
Yeah.
I like the Preacher Row soundtrack.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They should have been on the Ghostbusters soundtrack. They would have made a really good song for this movie. Oh, well. All right. Here they are.
We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
No one's here to comfort me. Sorry for what I have done. Sorry that your son is gone. 7 steps and it will be my last. And start to me on my back. I turn and I look to you. I'm scared but there's nothing I can do.